interesting thing about touch is, again, we have this whole concept of mirror neurons, entrainment, all of these things. If all I did was rock him back and forth, and then I go into an altered state, those things tend to happen. I go that away. Come now.
If
only it were that easy, right?
It's fine. This is called the magic finger induction.
Such a somnambulist.
Sleep all the way down deep.
He's a somnambulist.
He wasn't when we started. First time he came to an erotic hypnosis class, he had a major block about going into trance. Couldn't do it. So I literally brought him up, spun it, he became hyper-responsive.
Kind of exciting.
Wow.
Now, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. As I count from 1 to 5, it's like I have these little vibration count amplification settings on the back of the chair. So 1 is like the lowest setting, that's what you're feeling now. But then every now and then I go, oh my. Woo!
It's the orgasm chair.
The better you feel, the deeper you go, the deeper you go, the better you feel. That's right. Everything I say, everything I do, every positive instruction that you've ever heard me give to yourself or to anybody in this room, well, double it. Oh yes. In fact, you remember Kate up here in this very chair. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard.
I'll show you Kate after this.
The discipline of psychometry, where when people handle objects, they leave vibrational imprints.
Now, the woman before him was in that chair, was having massive grand mal orgasms, just to give you context.
Activated, that your
He was watching.
senses go on overload. They go on hyperdrive. And you may begin to discover impressions rising up somewhere inside that chair. And you may begin to notice, yeah, that. You may hear Kate's voice. Oh. And you may hear my instructions to Kate. And you may feel Kate's responses. That's right. It's almost like you are Kate.
Instant transgender. Boom.
And then double it again. That's right. Deeper. And deeper. And deeper still. That's right. Excellent. In a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. When I reach the number 5, you'll emerge from this state only at the rate and speed that you realize that you can go this more deeply into these experiences, or even deeper. Every word I speak, every moment you hear the sound of my voice, powerfully reinforces, amplifies, accelerates, and just makes better everything you've learned so far. That's right.
Half the women in the room are going, because they're going along for the ride. Their defenses are down, they're in it.
And it just...
That's why the demo is never for the person in the chair.
Better. Number 1, feel yourself returning to this place we call reality, bringing with you a brand new reality, ladies and gentlemen. A reality where you're the one that knows how to do this. You're the one that has realized the power of playfulness, the power of fun, realizing that as good as it is, it's only going to get better. 2, doubling it, quadrupling it. 3, on your way back to this place we call reality, realizing really at a deep level that hypnosis is easy. It's fun. It's the most fun you can have with your clothes on. And sometimes not. 4, almost back. Head clear, mind clear, thinking and acting with a calm self-assurance, feeling good all over, glad to be alive. Oh, by the way, that setting just went up to 4 too. Woo! On the next count, you will explode out of trance, orgasmically, knowing deep down inside your mind, body, and soul, it's only going to get better. Number 5. Oh! Big round of applause for the man.
But wait, there's more.
Slowly get up. Now. This is how I ask for volunteers.
This is the guy I almost killed.
Sit.
He's not a little person.
It's okay.
I swore I killed him. I swore I'm going to fucking jail. I'd say to myself, fuck, I killed him.
And deeper still. Now, Bob, you've watched people come and come and come in all the ways that are right for you. Now, I don't know which one you like the best, but your unconscious mind does. In a moment, I'm going to flip that switch. That's right. You really want to take this chair home with them after a while. That's level 1. Oh, that's right. Noticing how good you feel, it's only getting better. And you're going to discover that, yes, hypnosis is in fact this easy. The great myth, the great lie moment.
I'll answer later.
Is that hypnosis is hard. Right now, the only thing that's hard is a little lower. And it's getting better. But you're going to discover that when it's time to perform in a physical way, you're going to laugh and laugh and laugh.
What man's going to turn down that suggestion?
Whoever you partner up with, whoever you work with, they're going to need a stress test. Because you are going to be so large and in charge, so in control, so masculine, so aware and in control of every aspect of when you make love, when you communicate, when you connect with a woman in a way that makes her feel truly loved and savored and satisfied. You're going to meet her checklist, you're going to match it completely, and then you're going to take her way, way beyond. And the best part is, the moment your woman has an orgasm, boom! That's right. That's your reward for putting your woman's pleasure ahead of your own. You'll be able to last as long as you want, come as often as you want, and just get stronger. That's right. Easily, naturally, automatically, for all the right reasons. Your unconscious mind has learned things powerfully, Bob. And each night while you sleep and while you dream, make all the necessary adjustments on a psychological level, an emotional level, a physiological level that allow you to function and be the man you truly want to be. To have more control and more fun and more pleasure, all at the same time. And the best part is, every time you practice hypnosis, all that other stuff gets doubled. All that other stuff gets amplified. So the more people you hypnotize, well, that's right. Here's number 4. That's right. Feel that electricity flowing through every level of your
Now that's
mind,
4.
body, and soul.
There's 5 settings.
The more you try to hold it down, well, the stronger it gets. Because anytime you compress something, it only gets more intense. That's right. Deeper and deeper and deeper still until finally, before you realize it, when you can't hold it anymore, you explode out of trance only at the rate and speed that every level of your body and mind is fully accepted, integrated, and is implementing these suggestions. And every time you successfully complete a hypnotic act, you get it again. Feel it building, and when you're ready, woo!
Wow.
Dude, that's...
I thought I killed him. I swear to God, oh my God, I'm going to jail. Death by orgasm.
Hypnosis is easy. We'll debrief you later.
Always do it in threes.
I'm not going to do it again. I've raised the chomp, but the people are going to want to take. People are going to be sneaking this chair back to their room. I guarantee. Right. So the secret here again. Have a seat. What was your name again? John. John. That's right. The secret once again is just direct their attention somewhere. Now, one of the best examples. It's okay. You can come if you want to. A little air.
The audience is a little primed.
Yeah, they are.
No matter how much you come, your butt will stay stuck in that chair. That's right. In fact, your back will stay stuck in that chair, and you'll just come even more. That's right. Now, apparently there's more magic in this chair than in me. But what I was saying before he went into a profound ecstatic state was that one of the best examples of someone who leaves no blips on the radar. 1, 2, 3, eyes open, wide awake. That's right. Very good. One of the things that we have to, whenever you watch somebody getting ready to do an
Now keep in mind,
induction, it's like
I'm teaching instant inductions, but I'm using erotic trance work. You know, it's part. It would be no different if I were teaching therapeutic work, right? But I want you to pay attention to my state. It's fun, it's playful, it's lighthearted, it's not creepy, it's not like, Nurse Nancy, Nurse Nancy. It's very important that you, when you're guiding people through erotic scenarios, you don't take on that creepy, lusty energy. Understand? It changes how they interpret what you're saying, right? This also goes with storytelling. The more emotionally compelling the story, the more not necessarily flat, but the more restrained you want to be when telling it. Because if you go over the top, people have a certain emotional tolerance, and then it's too much, and they get reactant. So, and that's amplified in a hypnotic context, right? And so that's one of the things, and it goes to state control, right? Because people get so into what they're doing, it starts to leak out in their verse, in their tonality, in their gestures, the words that they use. If you notice, I don't use a lot of swearing or profanity. That's as graphic as it gets if you really think about it. And you think about my normal presentation style, I'm dropping the F-bomb left and right. Notice what I do here. These are all things that are in the background that lead to that ability to create an environment that's fun and safe and playful and explorational. And that's really the idea. The idea is to explore the realm of pleasure. And that's kind of where I teach it for couples and things like that, is to just explore what you can do with these things, right? It's not about power exchange. I mean, you can get into that if you want, but those are more lifestyle and fetish kinds of things, and that's not what this is.
Yeah.
Although you can use it as a bridge if that's where you want to go. Okay, so.
Right. Let's say John's here, and I'm about to do an induction, and I'm like a fledgling, or even a 10-year veteran. This is what you see when you see people doing it. Sleep. Right?
And he could go on, by the way. The entire room was like this, male and female.
It's like, here it comes. Well, remember, if it's a sudden, unexpected loss of physical or mental equilibrium, and you're telegraphing that shit, that's why 80% of your stuff doesn't work. Right? So magic finger induction is very, very simple. Look at the finger, follow it, sleep. Deep sleep all the way down. Deeper and deeper. That's right. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. Double the orgasm now. Deeper and deeper still, all the way down. That's right. Drifting, dreaming, floating, flying. The secret is I send their attention one way.
You saw me kill the one guy, so we can watch this, or we can look at 50 Shades of Grey Room, which is a little bit longer, a little bit more intense, but it's on the feminine side. So I don't know if people are interested in that or not.
Rocking and talking and talking.
Yeah.
Yes?
I'd like to see the other side.
And as long as I continue to talk.
30 minutes left.
30 minutes left? Okay. Somebody's...
Is this stuff?
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we do that, let's do the Orgasm Bazooka real quick. Now, this particular clip it was a very short clip. And in this particular training, one of the participants was actually a professional dominatrix. And she was kind of always in my face. She's like always being smart ass and whatever. How do we get monetization on that one, right? And so this is, I'm getting ready to break them for lunch, and she's just giving me lip, right?
It doesn't matter what your client believes. It matters what you believe. What matters is does the client...
By the way, this was Stephen Smith, or Stephen Frederick. You guys know Stephen with the beard? Take care of me, Katie. This was his first training. That's him in the front row.
To its ultimate conclusion, regardless of what your client believes going in,
She's the
if you
dominatrix.
tell them to believe
Over here.
something and they comply, what must happen?
She was a hyper responder too, which you wouldn't think.
So, whatever
But-
whatever baggage or not baggage you attribute to that word obedience and compliance, get rid of it. None of the good you do in the world happens until the client does what you say. Nothing good in the bedroom happens until the subject does what you say. Get over it. Does that make sense? Okay? Very cool. What time do you want to go to lunch? It is 10 minutes till 12. You jumped down. We'll fix that. Have a good time with this? Was it fun? Yeah. It's going to get better. Okay? We build the foundation, we just keep going. So, first question, you didn't answer. When do you want to go to lunch? You want to go now? Huh?
They didn't want to go to lunch. They just went. They only had a 2-day training, so they wanted to get maximum immersion.
Say that again? What? We're not catering, so yeah. The second question, of course, is how long a lunch do you want? It's your training, guys. I mean, I'll fill you guys as full of stuff as I can. 45 minutes? This is an enthusiastic group. I like that. All right, say what we'll do since they squeezed me into a 50-minute session. You want an hour? Okay. Actually, if some of you want to go,
She said, "Let's go bring lunch back."
And practice while you eat. That's a whole new connection to the word playing with your food. But anyway. All right, let's technically take an hour. If you guys want to come back and start earlier, get more reps in, that's fine. Okay? So we're going to go real quick. We got 10 minutes till 12. Where are you going? You feel the need to release something?
Yeah, I do, okay? Oh, shit.
You know what's happening, don't you?
Oh, no. Yes. Oh, no.
Eileen, look into my eye.
Wait for it.
Oh, I hate you, but I love you.
Now double it. And double it again. Feel how good it just rushes through every level of your mind and body. Each time you climax, it happens again, stronger than the time before. And every time it does, you become a better dominator.
That's conditioning with pleasure.
That's everything that you want and aspire to be in endless, unlimited supply. You got it. Now. Lunch.
You gotta have fun.
Good stuff, man.
Okay, so
That's on YouTube?
yeah,
What's it called?
Orgasm Bazooka, or Energy Hypnosis Tips, Orgasm Bazooka lunch. 50 Shades of Grey Room.
Funny.
This one's long, so if you guys have to be somewhere or you want to focus on other things, hold on a second. Where are you? Let's do this. There we go.
So here's what we're.
Now, what's funny about this one is while I was working with Kate, the back of the room was it was way back there, but they were having a regression class next door. Roy, what's his name? Who's the big regression guy for HGH? Anyway, him and his partner were doing a regression session, and all of a sudden, Kate starts having these grand mal orgasmic responses. So he sent his partner over to tell us to keep it down a little bit.
Oh.
So he walks in, he's at the back of the room, and he's like, he just can't look away. And he said, first he comes, he goes, you don't see it, but it's very subtle. I nod to him or whatever, and then he's trying to leave the room, and he's like, he can't find the door, right? Because he can't look away, right? So anyway, it's on YouTube. You can watch it. I don't want to take too much time because this is a long one, because it's a whole gray room process. In addition, but what you'll see when you watch it is you'll see we do a basic. We start by eliciting and anchoring in pleasure and orgasmic responses. Usually, it's best to do something like a drug of choice type induction, where you're doing something that's pleasurable but not there yet, and you move them through it in stages. And then you just start linking the pleasure release to burning up the shit. So every time they take something out of the gray room, I'll throw it in the fire. When a fire rushes up, they climax. And so the more they throw that shit in the fire, the more orgasmic they become, the more oxytocin they release, the more plastic the system gets, and you have this spiraling effect in terms of neuroplasticity, right? But you have to get people in a playful enough state, a safe enough state that they're willing to go there, right? And you have to also understand that not everybody are super strong responders like this. That doesn't mean they're not having intense experiences, they're just not showing it. All right, so a lot of times when people come into an erotic hypnosis training and their partner isn't having these grand mal seizure level seismic orgasm, they think they're failing. They're not. Not every woman responds that way, right? So whatever level you get is good enough. One of the biggest challenges when people see these kinds, especially like the females, whatever, I don't know if I can respond like that. You don't need to, but you're still going to try because that's what you saw. So that's what your neurology imprints on as the standard. You'll see this also if you ever get in front of an audience and you demonstrate something like spinning. You bring somebody up and they have a 9 on a 10 scale and you spin it, it goes from 9 to gone, like 0. One session. From that moment on, everybody you bring up or work with will tend to go from whatever they're at to 0. If you bring them up and you go from a 9 to a 7, from a 7 to a 5, from a 5 to a 3, from a 3 to a 1, that's what people will do. They will respond based on the template. So it's always a good idea to make your show, your demonstration of power spectacular and early.
And if they have if somebody has an abreaction, hold your shorts.
Yep, because you got to fix it, right? Which is why a lot of people don't do demos. I train my people to be prepared for anything. So when the demo happens, they roll up their sleeves and say, okay, let's go, right? That's we train for the real world. And nothing is going to demonstrate your ability and skill as an authority on your subject than bringing somebody up and just fixing their shit no matter what happens. And that means being prepared because the universe will throw monkey wrenches. I remember one time I went to HypnoThoughts, I think it was 2014, maybe 2013, and my talk was on attractivation, utilizing the law of attraction to manifest. I bring somebody up for the manifestation demonstration. She has a complete meltdown abreaction. I spent 45 minutes of the hour doing therapy in a manifestation workshop. Okay, and I did it well, and the audience was like, "Oh my God!" But most people would have just tried to put the genie back in the bottle. I don't. I don't. Igor's people. I don't want to talk bad about Igor, but a lot of my students have said that when people abreact in Igor's class, he ignores it, or he puts it back in the bottle, or circumvents around it, or don't, because that's going to demonstrate your shit more than anything else, right? You are an agent of transformation anytime, anywhere, under any circumstances, right? You never know when you're going to be called on. I've had to use emergency hypnosis 3 times in my life. Twice on the same person, right? One time I was at HypnoThoughts. I was teaching a class on conversational hypnosis. Scott Sandlin walks in, says, I need your help. He walks me out. He goes, "We have a pregnant woman in the lobby, and she's having pains." I'm like, "Why are you calling me?" He goes, "Because you're the closest thing to a doctor that I know about." And so I literally walked in, and the woman was having pains. This was her second or third child, I think. She had called the emergency room. They said, "Don't. It's not a big deal." Like they just wouldn't treat her or whatever. She couldn't get a hold of her physician. She was like basically freaking out in the lobby. And so I just walked up. I said, "The worst is over. Point to where you feel it." Took it away. Completely fine. By the end of the day, it was all over HypnoThoughts how I saved this woman who was on fire from being. It got so blown out of, but it was literally true. You just handle it, right? And I have many of my students have stories where something happened, and they just dealt with it because they were there, they knew what to do, and they had been trained well, right? I tell the story about the lady who came to Identity by Design in 2015. Nice lady from Hawaii, went through the training. She's on her way home from the training. She's in the airport waiting to go. A guy in line ahead of her is a veteran returning from the war and has a complete post-traumatic meltdown episode, some kind of flashback or something like that. They're getting ready to call the cops on him. They're getting ready to drag him out. She walks up and she goes, "Point to where you feel it." Spun that shit away. He followed her around the airport until she got on the plane. And he happened to be on the same plane, and he just made sure she was like her bodyguard for the entire time. When they got off the plane in Hawaii, he gave her his Wounded Warrior jacket.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Nice lady, late, early 50s probably, just little grandma type, you might think. But saw a guy in need and did what was necessary. Because the shit works, right? As long as your state control's right, and you can get them to do what you want them to do, it'll work. You saw me say it in the video, none of the goods you have is accessible until the client does what you tell them to do. They don't have to believe, they just have to comply. And it'll work, right? So that being said, let me go back to my list. Yes, you only got 15 minutes or less. So when we talk about Bankston, now you guys know the basic image cycling process, yes? Where you create a list of things you selfishly want, you imagine what it would be like to have it and what you would do if you had it, and then you imagine what you would do if you had that, and then you compress all those good feelings and all those experiences into a keyword or a phrase or a symbol, and you put it on a list and you cycle through those keywords as rapidly as you can. That's the basic image cycling process. Now, the hacks that I use when I'm working with this, and when I'm working with groups especially, one of the things that you want to remember is it goes back to VAKOG. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. Every desire that you have can be broken down into 5 channels of information that delineate the structure of that experience. Most of us have 2 coding systems that we work with. One is default. In other words, you come out of the factory with this in place. The other is idiosyncratic. It's one we develop, how we customized. Like if I say, point to remember a time in your life when you felt immense pleasure. If there were a picture pointing in the space around you, a picture you could reach out and touch, where would you reach out and touch it? Reach out and touch the picture. Go ahead, all of you, just reach out and touch your picture. Notice you're all reaching out to a different spot. That's your idiosyncratic coding system. However, if you take that picture, shrink it down to the size of a postage stamp, and throw it behind you, what happens?
Goes away.
What happened?
It left.
How many of you went away? That's your stock coding system. I didn't tell you what would happen. Every one of you had a very similar experience. Why? Because your neuron... Now, by the way, reach back and grab it, bring it up here and put it where you want it. Exactly. Because that's superior thinking. Once you can examine the structure of an experience and evaluate it, you can decide what to do with it. That's what that's what he means when he talks about superior thinking. Right? I have a thought, I have a feeling, I have a memory, I know where I feel it, I have the file, I evaluate it. Do I like it this way? Do I like it over here? Where do I like it? and then poof, fix it into place, put it in the new filing cabinet, system runs the program, right? The more you do it, the more plastic you're going to become, the more user-friendly that system gets. And that's exactly what you do with each thing on your image cycling list. First thing you're going to do is somatically bridge. When you think about what it is you want, you're going to point to where you feel that feeling connected to it. You're going to reach out and you're going to touch the picture. And then you're going to trace the outline of the picture physically with your hands, so you know how big it is. You're going to manipulate it physically with your hands. You're going to make it bigger. You're going to make it smaller. You're going to move it closer. You're going to move it further away. You're going to find the exact size, shape, and location that gives you the exact feeling at the exact intensity level that you want it to have, and you're going to fix it into place and experience that. Work done. Move on to the next thing. Because what you want is maximum emotional and neurological engagement in each of those lists before you start cycling. And it's the act of managing and manipulating that locks it in. Okay? And so a lot of times when we make a picture of something we want, it's this fucking big. Right? Our default picture is small and it's far away. Because why? Because it's not real for us yet. So we have to change the code to do that. And so what I do is I go through each thing on my list and I play with the submodalities and the locations, and I find the optimal feeling as intense as I can stand it, and I change the filing cabinet. Then as I go through my list, I cycle through those faster and faster. That's it. All I'm doing once I've established my list is I'm amplifying or modifying the submodalities, and then I'm going back to my list and cycling. And I only cycle for as long as I feel pleasure. So image cycling is about things you selfishly want and are emotionally connected to. Understand? Yeah. Doesn't matter how many times you do it, as long as you're feeling pleasure doing it. Right? This is a big secret. Cycle faster and faster, but continue to feel good. Okay? Then you can add other bells and whistles later on. But that's the process. Does that make sense? Okay. And this segues us into this whole idea of time codes. Your time codes, your way you sort time is based entirely on your submodalities. Okay, even basic timeline interventions are just variations on submodality interventions. Do you guys know what I mean when I say submodalities? I don't know if Jeff, if you're familiar with submodalities or not.
I am not.
Okay, submodalities are visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and olfactory channels of information. So if you see a movie in your head, as you pay attention to the movie, most of the time you're paying attention to the story. But as you look at the story, is the story in color or black and white? Is it moving or is it still? Are the images clear or fuzzy? Those distinctions are visual submodalities. They're building blocks of the overall experience, but they're not expressly the content. They manipulate the way you experience the content. Does that make sense? Okay. So within every thought, within every memory that we have 5 building blocks. Think of the white light prism analogy. White light comes in, it's refracted into 5 channels of information. Those channels are reconstituted, kind of like a reference beam and an object beam and a hologram. Right? Only there's 5 of them. Right? And all of a sudden now we're back to holographic memory, aren't we? But NLP didn't take us far enough because it left the body out. It left somatic engagement out. A lot of Grinder's later stuff started to reintegrate kinesthetics, but it still wasn't as user-friendly as what we... Bottom line is, we can manipulate how we experience a memory or a thought by changing the visual colors, the clarity, the movement, the locations that we store it, all those things. We can amplify or diminish how we experience that memory. And that's the most important thing to understand. The order and sequence of submodalities, the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, are analogous to the parts of the brain. If you think of a firing sequence in an engine with spark plugs, right? That's kind of like the firing sequence. Those are what we use to generate behaviors. We use submodalities within each channel to generate our experience. And if you look at the way I organize it, I don't really, this gets a little bit deep, but if we look at VAKOG, right? Okay? If we look at the VAKOG, the sequence of this, A, B, C, D, this is going to generate a behavior. Okay? So if I'm a visual auditory kinesthetic, let's say I'm going to do, I'm going to go to a seminar. First thing is I'm going to watch a video, I'm going to talk to somebody about it, and then I'm going to get a feeling, good or bad, about whether I want to go forward, and then I'm going to act on it. That's VAK strategy. That's what NLP calls a strategy. You have a strategy for every behavior that you do. But within this idea, you have, again, these other distinctions, like black and white versus color, right? Movement versus still, fuzzy versus clear. And these would all be distinctions within the visual channel, right? So what you have is, when you go laterally across the table, you have the sequence that creates behavior. When you look at the individual channels, you have the coding system for experience, and those two systems interact. We're not studying them interactively here. We're studying each subsystem individually, because they both affect very different aspects of the human experience. One affects what we do, the other influences how we experience them. And we can change our experience by changing the submodalities. All right? That's why when you took that picture and you moved it behind you, it went away. Because on the basic neurological level, anything that moves past the spinal cord, if you divide the body into hemispheres, forward hemisphere, posterior hemisphere, anything that's in the forward hemisphere is an open file on your desktop that's running. It's using up resources. Okay? Anything that travels beyond the spine, the body starts to automatically categorize as over, done, or complete. Right? So when you take that submodality and you move it back there, it's a default code. And the vast majority of you, that shit will just go away. Right? Now, remember, this is, again, one of the things that kind of differentiates my approach. NLP says it's all one code, or you all have your own unique code, and it's different for everybody. Not true. There's a tremendous amount of generalization from one human neurology to another. That's why you can run other people's codes. But we come in with certain default settings. And so when I teach and when I work, and whether I'm teaching influence or whether I'm teaching healing, I always work with the neurological predispositions of the system. I go with the current instead of against it. As a hypnotist, you can suggest for any phenomena you want, even if it goes against what the neurology is predisposed to do. But it's going to be harder work. So if I know that your neurology is predisposed to calibrating and organizing things as done when I move it behind you, I'm going to actually be better off using that organic neurology than finding a place in your forward hemisphere that was true once but no longer true, and putting it in there and hoping it sticks. Right? Both are useful. But when I'm working with a whole group, and all of a sudden everybody around is having the same exact experience from doing the exact same thing, it's like, oh my God, it must be real. Right? And I don't have to suggest for it. You understand? I can say, move it behind you, tell me what happens. And reliably, 80, 90, 100% of the room says, it's gone. That's an aha moment for people, right? And it becomes immediately useful if you understand it as a tool, not just a parlor trick. If you employ it as an aspect of, this is part of who I am and what I can do with my nervous system. And it becomes usable, it becomes workable. So, yes?
Is it okay if I just add a comment on, for people who are new to NLP? So, basically these 5 are internal representations, and they're called modalities, and within them, these are submodalities, how people represent, say, visual, how far is the picture, how big. So modalities and submodalities, that's how it's easier to remember.
Yeah, I love jargon that completely confuses people. Right, it's one of the things I'm moving away from. When I create nomenclature, and it's impossible to not, I try to make the technique sound, the name of the technique sound like what it does. Right? Because if a person can't relate submodality or modality to what it's going to cause confusion, and that's again because people are trying to be erudite instead of eloquent or elegant. Right? They try to use fancy words and to be very precise in their language by using very long, multisyllabic words that actually create more confusion than they eliminate, because only very erudite people have that vocabulary. right? Your job is to make everything you do completely understandable by the person you're talking to. Because if they can't understand you, they can't connect with you. If they can't connect with you, they certainly won't obey you. Okay? So again, use, I like to say trumpet. Use very small 3-letter words full of emotion, and you're going to get the vast majority of people, even the academics. It doesn't generalize the other way. Right? So don't be afraid to drop the F-bomb. It works. Works well. Right? Just don't do it incongruently. If it's not your normal way of speaking, don't try and throw an F-bomb in there because you heard me do it or Tony Robbins do it. Right? Be you. You do you. Right? I'll drop an F-bomb anywhere. And I have. Right? Because it's just who I am. Sometimes I live to regret it. Right? But as by and large, if you're congruent with it, it just goes by people. Like, how many of you been to my Secrets of Internal Power training? You have, right? Who are my coach? Were you there this year? Oh. All right. This year, I had 2 very special guests in my training. Grandmaster Chris Thomas and Grandmaster Leo Fong. Grandmaster Leo Fong was Bruce Lee's best friend. Both of them are retired Lutheran ministers.
Leo Fong is too.
Yep. And if you I was dropping the F-bomb like it was nobody's business. They didn't bat an eye. Right? Most people are like, oh my God, he's a minister. Right? Be authentic. If that's how you communicate, be you. And if you drop the F-bomb and it's appropriate, apologize. And if it's inappropriate, apologize. Right? If it isn't inappropriate and it feels inauthentic to apologize, don't. Remember, it's impossible to not offend somebody. In fact, if you try to not offend somebody, you're going to wind up offending yourself. Okay, because you won't like the person staring back at you in the mirror. Right? So, all right, we got 3 minutes. Did I miss anything? Gray room, I gave Stephen a process to follow. He has all these techniques. So gray room, magic frame, magic circle, image cycling. Right? That would be a very good way to clear shit and program your future. Right? I know Jeff, this is all new, but he's highly trained in this. Veronica's highly trained in that they can bring you up to speed on it. We talked about Bankston. We talked about erotic hypnosis. And did I answer Cammie's questions regarding erotic hypnosis? She's time codes. Oh, going back to time codes again. So remember a time in your life when you experience the kind of time distortion that you want to have. Notice where in your body you feel it. Reach out, touch the picture. Start manipulating the submodalities. And you will reliably start to re-enter that state. Now, if you try it, now here's the problem with that, just as a quick thing. The one thing you must do is you must become absorbed in the state. You can't sit there and evaluate how deeply in the state you are, because it's the part of you that's trying to do the evaluation that keeps you out of time distortion. Mm-hmm. Time distortion involves a level of absorption that precludes analysis of the experience. So if you find yourself in analyzing the experience or the depth that you're having it, you're not in it. Mm-hmm. So you won't realize you've done it until you've come out of it, as a rule, right? So when you set anchors, flip the anchor, go into state, do what you got to do, and then unset the anchor and notice how time changes. But don't try to notice how time is changing while you're in the state. You'll blow yourself out of it. All right? There are physiological ways to enter time distortion. We teach those in the martial arts trainings. But if you're working primarily from submodalities, which is where Terry Ann's coming from, and a lot of you are coming from, it's submodality work. Right? For every psycho-emotional state that you have, there's a structure to it. Right? You can address that somatically, you can address that cognitively. If you can do both, like our polarity drills teach you to do, you got the best of both worlds. Yes?
30 seconds to tell Danka how to get to secondary gain.
How to get to secondary gain? Is there any reason why you might want to keep it? Is it okay to get rid of it? Is there any reason why you... 2 questions. Yeah. Is it okay to get rid of it? Is there any reason why you might want to keep it? The minute you get hesitation, you know they've got a secondary gain, you go right to magic frame. 30 seconds, boom!
Yeah, so that's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for coming. If I don't see you or talk to you before the new year, have a Merry, Merry Christmas, an amazing new year. We will see all of you in 2020. Sign up, call Stephanie and harass her if you want to do face reading on January 10th through the 12th. We have like 5 or 6 seats left. for that. We have Killer Influence coming up January 26th to the 28th. Is that what you said, TJ?
23rd.
Oh, 23rd to the 20 what? 26th. Okay. The number to reach out and get your seat reserved is 858-282-4663. You can also reach out to Stephanie at nlppower.com, and she'll be happy to process you, answer any questions that you have. I love you all. God bless. We'll see you next time. Okay.